what's up, you guys? Marty Schwartz here with Marty Music. I'm going to show you two really cool chord voicings for dominant 7 chords or like bluesy kind of chords. So these are not used as much as those standard 7 chords that you might know, 7th chords. So these are great to add into your arsenal for blues playing. And speaking of that, I have a brand new course called Intermediate Blues Techniques. And I show this lesson in there and a bunch of other techniques that are great once you're past being able to play like a 12-bar blues and just a little bit of soloing. I have a whole structured course and you can get it right now in the link down in the description below, so check that out. And in the meantime, I'm going to show you these 2 hip chord voicings. Here we go. All right, so let's look at the standard blues chords. I'll do it in the key of C. So we've got the 8th fret on the E string right there. So a C7 chord looks like this, or that. Right? The 4 chord is F7 or F9. Back to the 1 chord, C7. Then G7 is just a whole step up from that F7. And then back to the C7. Now, if I reversed where I was playing my roots, if I started with a C7 chord on the A string, I could go all the way up to the 15th fret A string root. And then the 4 chord would be on the 13th E. G7 could be on the 15 E. Or right there. See where I'm going with that? You could do C7 here, F7 here. So these are just 2 different voicings I'm using right now. Like that. So you want to think of those, but then we're going to do some substitutions for those. So I always like to find the chords by where the root is. So if I'm thinking C7, I'm going to look at that 8th, the C note, the 8th fret E string. But instead of playing this, I'm going to now play this. And so I'm not even playing, if I had longer fingers, I could probably put my thumb on that root. But I'm not even worried about it because I'm going to be using it in a band setting. So a bass player will be playing the root, maybe a rhythm player will be playing the root, piano, etc. So you don't even have to think about the root. I'm only thinking of the root right now with how to locate the chord. So I see the 8th fret E string, and then I'm going to put my 3rd finger on the 8th fret D string. And so interval-wise, like the note of a C7 chord that is the 7th, the flat 7th. But I'm putting my 3rd finger there instead of that chord. I see the root, and I kind of locate it or anchor the shape of the chord with that 3rd finger on the 8th fret D string. Middle finger is going to be on the 7th fret G string. And that's actually the 9th of a C. So it's a little brighter color. That's like it's not one of the like primary chord tones, but a 9 is really nice tone to add to a dominant chord. So it's almost like jazzy, it's definitely, these are jazzier sounding chords. When you got 9ths and 13s in there, it makes it sound jazzier. So that's what we got. Now this is where our finger has to stretch a little bit. We're going to play the 5th fret B string. Very different sounding than. And so that right there, since we're playing, this would be called a C9 chord. It's got the 7th, the 9th. That's the major 3rd of C. You might see a C7 chord here and see that note there as the major 3rd. And then on top, I'm playing the root. So it makes it just a more interesting chord, because when you first start learning guitar, you tend to play the roots in the lower register. In this voicing, I'm playing it actually as the top note. So we've got the 7th, the 9th, the major third, and the root. And the low root is right there. So this is a C9 chord. More traditional C9 chord would be like the C James Brown chord with the 3rd fret A string root. Same chord, different voicing. So that is a C9 chord. If I just wanted to use just that voicing for a 1-4-5, a C blues, I could find the 4 chord, the F9, by finding the F note on the E string, 13th fret, and then playing that same voicing. So listen to the change. And just look for the root on the E string to plug the shape in. The G7, the 5 chord, is the 15th fret E string. All right, so I can just play a little bass line just so you can hear how that chord fits over it. So that's a C9 chord. So every chord voicing you learn tends to have a little trick to it. Like the way your fingers are laid out, you can either add a finger or take a finger away within that voicing to add a unique modification to it. So with this voicing, what's really cool is you can move your index finger up a half step and it becomes the sus4. So that's just a cool little trick for that chord. Okay, so we did just that voicing for all 3 chords of the C blues. C9, F9, and G9. Now let's add another, this is just a dominant 7 chord voicing, but this would be based off the A root, but we're not gonna play the A string for the chord, which then allows us to add a more interesting voicing to our repertoire. So let's play a C9 chord, but instead of this one, or we're gonna play, I'll take the C9. If I didn't flatten my 3rd finger and just played these 3, that's C7. So the reason I'm showing it to you is that's what we're visualizing to plug in this new voicing. So that's the root right there, the 15th fret A string, but instead I'm gonna play this. And so I'm looking at the root, but not playing it. Then the major third is right next to it with the middle finger. And so that's the 14th fret D string, and that's the major third of the chord. Remind you again, this is a C7 chord. So that's the major third, then 3rd finger on the 15th fret G. That is the 7th. All right. Then my index finger's on the 13th fret B string, and that's the root. Then pinky on the 15th fret high E. 3rd, 7th, root, 5th. Those are the notes of a C7 chord. A different way to play that same chord, different voicing. Now the new C9, regular C7, and now this new voicing here. So let's use just this new voicing for the 3 chords of a C blues. So C7, F7, and G7. So I can see the root C right there on the 15th fret A string, and then I plug in 14, 15, 13, 15. An octave lower would be right here for C7. So that's 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 1st fret, and then pinky on the 3rd fret high E. So the F7 chord would have the 8th fret A root, and then the G7, I just move that up a whole step. So the G root is on the 10th fret A string, and I'm not playing it, so then I'd have 9th fret D, 10th fret G, 8th fret B, 10th fret high E. So that is a G7, F7, C7, or C7, F7, G7. Now, if you know both voicings, then you can play different combinations. I could play C9 here. Then the 4-chord F7 right here. C9. G7. F7. C9. Play C7 right here. And go all the way to the F9 right here. G9, F9, C7 right here. So that's just different combinations of 2 voicings. So I go into a lot of other, you know, it's not super advanced, but it's just a little sassier, not quite used as much as those traditional kind of beginner blues chords you learn. So I have a bunch of other stuff like this in my new course, Intermediate Techniques, or Intermediate Blues Techniques. And so don't forget, the link is down in the description below. Thanks again for supporting Marty Music, and I hope to see you guys again. See you later.